In F1 and F2 racing, we have seen the awe-inspiring feats of top drivers, massive drifts, precise maneuvers, and split-second decisions that defy the odds. While legends like Hamilton and Verstappen consistently deliver top-level performances, others face moments of embarrassment and failure. But what happens when everything goes wrong for the same driver over and over again? Now, this isn't about Yuji Ide or Narayan Karthikeyan. This is the story of an F2 racer who got into the game only to rack up incident after incident, collecting penalties and doubling the most points required for a race ban in a single calendar year. This is the story of the most dangerous, careless, and delusional drivers ever. This is the story of Mahavir Raghunathan, the worst Formula 1 driver you've probably never heard of. We're going to start the story by getting a little insight into who Mahavir actually is. This is because in order to understand him and the circumstances that surrounded him, Mahavir was by far a very complex person. In fact, he was quite popular for always making the headlines, but for all the wrong reasons. So we need some context about his rise to the starting grid in the first place. Born in Chennai, India in 1998, Mahavir Raghunathan hailed from the same city as Narayan Karthikeyan, one of only two Indian drivers ever to reach Formula 1. From a young age, he developed a deep obsession with cars, and just like many guys of his generation, he entered the now defunct Amaron Karting Challenge, competing against thousands of school students from across the country. His talent quickly stood out, earning him a spot among a few select karters chosen for specialized training from racing experts, including Akbar Ibrahim. This experience set the stage for what lies ahead. The success of the Amaron Challenge became his gateway to the National Karting Championship the following year. Here, for the first time, he faced professional karters, young talents who, like him, were determined to carve out a career in motorsport. The odds were stacked against him, but he decided to pursue his dream anyway. Remarkably, he also made a single-seater debut in the same year. To put that in perspective, karting is where young drivers typically learn racecraft. Mahavir spent less than a year in karting, not because he was a prodigy, but perhaps because he moved on quickly, leaving the others to catch up. A few months earlier, Arjun Maini was signed by Haas F1 as a development driver, signaling a bright future for India in motorsport. While both Maini and Mahavir Raghunathan were making significant strides in their careers, Mahavir's journey was notably different. Unlike Arjun, Mahavir is a first-generation driver from a middle-class family, and up until recently, he's been racing without any sponsorship. Despite these challenges, the Italian company Coloni Motorsports stepped in to support the young talent. Mahavir's consistently sought out tougher competition, a pattern that would define his career. Transitioning to single-seaters was far from easy. He competed in 4 rounds of the JK Racing Asian Series, signed up for the full season of MRF F1 600, and raced for the final round of the Formula's Masters China Series in Shanghai. But these were just stepping stones. Mahavir was about to be thrown into the deep end. The year was 2014, and Mahavir entered the Italian F4 Championship, a series won by Lance Stroll, who, as some would say, purchased his way to the title. But Mahavir at least didn't have a wealthy benefactor crafting his entire career. To his credit, he wasn't the worst, finishing 12th overall. The following year, he moved up to the European F3 Championship. He showed up for 33 out of 36 races, gave it his all, and scored a grand total of 0 points. Admittedly, the team wasn't top tier, but when your best finish of the season is 20th, you're certainly not making a strong impression. He even tried to stick with F3 machinery for a while, even competing in the first race of the 2016 GP3 series. Predictably, he didn't suddenly transform into a frontrunner, finishing at the very back of the field once again. Remarkably, this didn't spell the end of his F1 ambitions, though that surprise would come later. Despite his dismal pace and a growing list of poor results, he refused to quit, continuing to chase his racing dream. But his next move was anything but wise. In 2016, he made a puzzling decision to join the AutoGP Championship, which merged with the Boss GP Championship just 1 race after he joined. The choice was baffling because it wasn't a logical step up the junior racing ladder. In fact, it was a step in the wrong direction. Usually, to reach the highest level, a driver typically advances through either AutoGP or GP2, and Mahavir plans to test a GP2 car in Abu Dhabi before deciding on his next move. With nearly 48.5% of F1 drivers having GP2 experience, Mahavir knows his path is crucial, but it also presents a significant financial burden. Racing in GP2 requires at least 2 years of competition, which would strain his family's resources even further. Despite the ongoing funding challenges, Mahavir continues to receive offers from Formula 1 teams and holds on to the hope that someone will come forward to help fund his dreams. Boss GP is essentially a series for wealthy amateurs to drive older single-seaters, indulging in the fantasy that they are better than they truly are. The grid includes everything from old F1 cars to mid-2000s GP2 cars and more, but it's hardly a proving ground for serious talent. The most troubling aspect of this situation was that even as a professional driver, he still couldn't win. He was piloting a Lola B0552, a car developed over a decade earlier for the A1 Grand Prix series. Junior categories are designed with cars that mimic the tires, handling, and downforce of F1 machinery to prepare drivers for the top level. But this car was outdated and entirely unfit for the task, leaving Mahavir ill-prepared for the challenges ahead. In the world of motorsport, his entire career seemed like an enigma. His season in Formula 2 was undeniably the worst by a significant margin, but we will get to that soon. After a dismal year, he continued racing in the lowest tier of Boss GP, a class hardly known for its prestige. Remarkably, he clinched the title that season, though luck played a far greater role than skill. His only real competitor, Johan Lehrer, missed 4 out of 14 rounds, practically giving the championship to him. But a win is a win, and some believe this might be the confidence boost he needed. Yet, winning in the Formula class of Boss GP isn't exactly a credential you flaunt to F1, F2, or even F3 teams. It's a minor achievement, one that would barely move the needle in the eyes of top-tier racing teams. But then in 2018, something extraordinary happened. He vanished from the racing scene, only surfacing once in the Liang Cup. Against all odds, logic, and expectation, he did the unthinkable. He secured a seat in Formula 2 for 2019. To this day, how he managed it remains a mystery even to him, perhaps. It certainly wasn't his speed that got him there, nor was it his racecraft. His resume was devoid of any significant accomplishments. No wins, no podiums, nothing in any professional series. It wasn't even clear if he had the backing of a major sponsor. But regardless, MP Motorsport signed him alongside Jordan King for the 2019 season. And this was no minor team. Just a few years later, they would claim the F2 championship with Felipe Grukovic. The question now was whether he could prove himself in a true championship. Could he score points, win races, and even challenge for the title? The world was about to find out. The path to Formula 1. The 2019 season began and was a catastrophe from the start. There's no other way to put it. Raghunathan was not just off the pace, he was worlds away. In the first round at Bahrain, he qualified 20th and last, nearly 3 seconds off the pole. To put that into perspective, Callum Elott, who qualified 18th, was 1.7 seconds off the pole, showing just how far behind the pack he truly was. It was a dismal start to say the least. In Formula 2, each round consists of a feature race and a sprint race, effectively doubling the opportunities for disaster. And disaster was exactly what awaited Mahavir that weekend. After crossing the finish line in the feature race, while most drivers slowed down and acknowledged their fans, Mahavir did something incomprehensible. He attempted to set his fastest lap after the race was over. The recklessness of this move was beyond words, endangering other drivers and track marshals. The FIA swiftly intervened, slapping him with a 10th place grid penalty for the next race. This was just the beginning. That penalty was the first of many in what would become a season plagued by infractions. By the year's end, the sheer number of penalties he accumulated was almost unbelievable. His pace never improved either. Bahrain was no fluke. His performance remained abysmal throughout the season. He finished 19th in Barcelona, 18th in Le Castellet, and 18th again in Silverstone. It was a season marked by struggle, penalties, and a seemingly endless string of poor results. The legacy of infamy. The second round of the season took place in Baku, a track beloved by many, but not by Mahavir. Baku's charm lies in its challenge, but to enjoy it, you need to be at least somewhat competitive. Unfortunately, Mahavir wasn't. The real deal came at turn 3 when he missed the corner and went down the escape road. Now, this isn't unusual in racing, but what happened next was something straight out of a comedy sketch. For 2 long minutes broadcast live to the world, Mahavir struggled to turn his car around. Despite the help of multiple marshals, he seemed utterly lost, unable to figure out how to maneuver his car out of the predicament. The incident quickly became fodder for countless memes and edits online, but beyond the embarrassment, there were serious consequences. As he fumbled through this ordeal, his brakes were overheating and his engine was taking a beating. Formula 2 cars aren't built to handle reverse gear for long, and Mahavir engaged reverse 247 times during the single maneuver, putting unnecessary strain on the gearbox. When he finally made it back to the garage, the team was less than impressed. They gave him some basic advice on how to execute a 3-point turn, a lesson he clearly needed. Even his fellow drivers couldn't resist mocking him. F2 rival Callum Elott couldn't help but laugh at the spectacle. One can only imagine the teasing he endured behind closed doors. But this wasn't just about one mistake. If he had somehow pulled off a brilliant performance in qualifying, it might have redeemed the situation. Instead, he made things worse, qualifying last over 6 seconds off the pace. His teammate Jordan King qualified 5th, over 5 seconds faster than Mahavir in the exact same car. King even secured a podium finish in the feature race, while Mahavir was nowhere near the points yet again. By now, it was clear Mahavir was disastrously off the pace, and unfortunately, things would only get worse. Though Mahavir did accumulate points, they were of the wrong kind. All penalty points. In Baku, he failed to stop at the weight bridge. In Monaco, he caused a collision with Jack Aitken. In Spain, he was caught speeding under yellow flags. At every track, he seemed to bring chaos. The highlight of his year came at Monza, where he scored a single point. But this wasn't due to a sudden surge in skill. It was simply because nearly half the grid didn't finish the race, allowing him to luck into a 10th place finish. That solitary point would be his only one in Formula 2. But his tally of penalty points reached an astounding 24 in just one season. How a driver racks up so many penalty points in a championship with only 12 rounds is baffling. An average of 2 penalties per round, an almost unimaginable record. His most egregious performance came on June 22nd, 2019 at the Paul Ricard feature race. It was as if he was on a mission to accumulate penalties, scoring 9 points in that race alone. He ignored the virtual safety car procedure 3 times, earning 3 points for each violation, a display of pure recklessness. The FIA had seen enough and handed him a ban for the following round in Austria, hoping to rein him in. But this wasn't the last time he faced the threat of a ban. He narrowly avoided a second suspension in November, incredibly managing to hit the 12-point threshold, serve his ban, and then rack up another 12 points before the season's end. In Abu Dhabi, Mahavir's final penalty points of the season were earned for failing to follow the practice start procedure, an error the stewards deemed extremely dangerous. Fortunately for him, it was the last race of the year, allowing him to narrowly avoid a second ban. But unsurprisingly, he wasn't retained for 2020. Mahavir Raghunathan was banned from Formula 2 not once, but twice in a single season, a feat almost unheard of. Most drivers go through hundreds, even thousands of races from junior level to Formula 1 without even facing a ban. Yet in just 12 rounds, Mahavir managed to get banned twice. The absurdity of it all speaks volumes. After his calamitous 2019 F2 campaign, he vanished from motorsport for nearly 2 years. But his biggest and most baffling challenge was still to come. Somehow, and it's hard to grasp how, Mahavir found himself behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car. And not just any car, he was called up in 2021 as a test driver for Alfa Romeo. On the same day future F2 champion Theo Pourchaire was testing, Mahavir took to the track at the Hungaroring in the seat 38. However, he failed to rise to the occasion, clocking in nearly 2 seconds slower than Pourchaire. Despite his lackluster performance, McLaren decided to give him a shot in 2023. This time, he tested their MCL35, the 2020 car, at Paul Ricard. It's safe to say that his appearance likely came with a significant financial contribution, a move that paid off well for McLaren's Zak Brown. Mahavir Raghunathan certainly left his mark on motorsport, especially in the Formula 2 championship. It wasn't the kind of mark left by rookies like Charles Leclerc or Oscar Piastri, who went on to win titles. No, Mahavir may not have been the best. In fact, he was undoubtedly the worst. But he did leave a legacy, however dubious it may be. His antics on the track delivered some of the most dismal, yet undeniably hilarious moments in racing history. While he didn't prove many brilliant highlights, he did leave us with plenty of memes. Arguably the next best thing, but despite everything, he didn't give up. How he managed to climb as high as Formula 2, let alone test Formula 1 cars, remains a mystery. Rumors abound that he was backed by substantial funding, with some suggesting his career was bankrolled by a major Indian car company and later by an Italian motor firm. However, there's no reliable information to confirm these claims, so I won't speculate further. What we do know is that he was out of his depth. He never should have been given the chance to drive in F2, let alone the privilege of testing out an F1 car twice. It's frustrating when you think of the countless talented drivers with immense skill and potential who deserve those opportunities far more. To see those precious seats wasted on someone who was never going to make it to Formula 1 in the first place is a harsh reminder of how unfair the sport can sometimes be. The only positive moment of his entire season came at the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, where he managed to score a single point. The rest of his antics were so numerous and absurd that they could fill an encyclopedia, leaving many to wonder how he was ever granted a racing license. His behavior on the track became such a problem that the FIA had to close a loophole just to prevent him from competing in the final 2 races of the season in Abu Dhabi. What do you think about his F1 career? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.